The Grand Chamber of the Galactic Council hummed with tension as representatives from dozens of alien species assembled beneath a domed ceiling illuminated by bioluminescent crystals. Each delegate brought their unique aura. Some shimmered, others emitted soft sounds, while a few were mere shadows. At the center of it all sat Elder Xylox, a towering figure with skin that shimmered like starlight, known for his wisdom and formidable presence. As he surveyed the assembly, his voice resonated through the chamber, silencing the murmurs. We convene today to address the threat of war looming on our borders. The recent skirmishes among the Axylan and Zoreth factions have escalated, and we cannot ignore the unpredictable nature of humanity. He glanced pointedly at the human delegate, Captain Alina Torres, who sat with her hands clasped tightly in her lap. Alina's heart raced as she felt the weight of the council's gaze upon her. Despite her years of service and the diplomatic overtures made by Earth, she could feel their disdain like a chill. We seek to forge alliances, not ignite conflict, she began, her voice steady despite the tumult within. Humanity has learned from its past. We strive for peace and collaboration. A murmur rippled through the council. A representative of the reptilian T'Kresh, his scales glinting menacingly, interrupted. But can you truly claim that your species has evolved? Your history is stained with blood and war. What assurances do we have that you will not bring your violence to our doorstep? Alina clenched her jaw, preparing to respond. We've evolved precisely because of our past. We are adaptable and capable of profound change. We come to you not as conquerors, but as partners. Elder Xylox raised a hand, calling for silence. Your words are commendable, Captain Torres. However, it is not merely your history that concerns us. Intelligence reports indicate a dark prophecy entwined with humanity, a prophecy that speaks of chaos and destruction if the wrong hands control the galactic forces. Alina's breath caught. Prophecies were taken seriously among the Council's members, often considered as warnings rather than mere folklore. What do you mean? She pressed. Her curiosity piqued. Legends from the ancient Korthi texts suggest that the resurgence of a powerful ancient race will be heralded by the actions of humans. Thylox explained, his voice grave. This race has a history of consuming worlds, and it is said that the key to their rise lies with humanity's unchecked aggression. Unease rippled through the chamber. The weight of Thylox's words sank in, sparking a flurry of discussion among the delegates. They exchanged nervous glances, contemplating the implications of a force they could not yet see. Your kind is volatile, spoke Zindra, the shimmering representative from the Kalar species. We cannot risk granting you access to the Council's resources or intelligence. We must ensure the stability of the galaxy. Alina leaned forward, determination burning in her eyes. But you can't ignore the potential for cooperation. Let us show you who we truly are. Allow humanity a chance to demonstrate our commitment to peace. Elder Kylox considered her request, his expression unreadable. A display of your capabilities may be prudent, he finally said, but know this. The Council is watching closely. Prove your worth or face the consequences. With that, the chamber erupted into a chorus of voices, some in agreement, others still skeptical. Alina felt the weight of their doubts, but also a flicker of hope. This was her chance to prove that humanity could be more than just its past. A chance to delve into the ultimate test of their resolve and unity. Captain Alina Torres stood on the observation deck of the UNSC Orion, staring out at the vastness of space. Stars twinkled like distant memories, each one holding a story of hope and conflict. The recent council meeting played in her mind like a haunting echo, Elder Xylox's words reverberating with an ominous weight. The stakes had never been higher. Captain. First Officer Jax Thorne's voice cut through her thoughts. He leaned against the control panel, concern etched across his face. We need to discuss our next steps. The Council is adamant about their stance. Alina turned to him, her jaw set. We have to act quickly, Jax. If we don't show them our value, they'll dismiss us entirely. She paced the deck, her mind racing. We need to demonstrate our commitment to peace and collaboration. We could set up a peacekeeping mission. Jax suggested, eyes brightening. There's a human colony on the fringes that's been receiving threats from the Zoreth. If we can protect them and broker peace, it might sway the Council's opinion. Alina nodded, the idea taking root. But we'll need to uncover the source of those threats. If it's not just rogue Zoreth, we could be walking into a trap. She felt a surge of determination. Let's assemble the crew. We're not just representing ourselves. We're fighting for humanity's place in the galaxy. As they gathered the team, a sense of urgency filled the air. Each crew member brought their unique skills, a blend of human ingenuity and diverse expertise. As they discussed their plan, Alina sensed a flicker of optimism among them. They were united by a common purpose, a desire to change the Council's perception. Just as preparations began, an emergency alert blared through the ship. The bridge filled with tension as Jax rushed to his station. "Captain, we're receiving a distress signal from the colony." "Patch it through," Alina ordered, her heart racing. The screen flickered to life, revealing a frantic colonist. "Captain Torres, we're under attack. Zoreth forces are advancing, and we're outnumbered. We need immediate assistance. Hold on, we're on our way." Alina barked, adrenaline surging. Set a course for the colony, full speed ahead. As the Orion hurtled through space, Alina gathered her thoughts. This was their chance to showcase humanity's resilience. We need to be strategic. We can't just engage them head-on. We'll establish a defensive perimeter and evacuate civilians. The crew nodded, their determination solidified. When they arrived, chaos reigned. Zoreth ships encircled the colony, their sleek forms silhouetted against the flames of battle. The cries of panicked civilians filled the air, amplifying the urgency of the situation. "Launch all fighters," Alina commanded, her voice cutting through the noise. "We'll distract them while we initiate the evacuation protocol." As the crew executed their plan, the Orion's fighter squadron launched into the fray. Alina took the helm, guiding the ship with precision as her team engaged the enemy. The Zoreth were formidable, their ships maneuvering with lethal grace, but Alina was undeterred. In the midst of the chaos, she caught sight of a larger Zoreth vessel positioned to cut off the escape routes for the colonists. "Jax, target that ship. If we can take it out, we'll open a pathway for evacuation." With deft coordination, they unleashed a barrage of firepower. Explosions lit up the darkness, a dazzling display of courage and strategy. But as the battle raged, Alina's mind remained sharp. She couldn't let emotion cloud her judgment. "Remember, we're here to protect, not to escalate. Let's show them we can work together." The team rallied, their resolve strengthening as they executed coordinated strikes. As the tide began to shift in favor of the humans, Alina felt a rush of hope. If they could save the colony and prove their worth, they might finally convince the Galactic Council that humanity was ready to stand among them, not as a threat, but as allies. The battle raged around the UNSC Orion as Captain Alina Torres and her crew fought valiantly to protect the beleaguered colony. The Zoreth vessels, though powerful, began to falter against the combined might of human strategy and innovation. With each explosion that lit up the void, Alina felt a surge of confidence. This was their moment to shine. "Target the lead Zoreth ship," Alina shouted, her eyes narrowing as she analyzed their movements. Jax Thorne, her first officer, quickly relayed the command to the gunnery crew, and the Orion unleashed a concentrated barrage. The enemy ship shuddered under the assault, flames erupting from its hull. "Direct hit. They're losing power," Jax exclaimed, a grin spreading across his face. The crew cheered, their spirits lifted by the momentum of their success. "Now's our chance," Alina urged, her voice firm. "Launch the rescue pods for civilian evacuation. We need to get as many people to safety as possible." As the pods deployed, the bridge was filled with a flurry of activity. Crew members relayed instructions to the evacuation teams, ensuring that every colonist had a chance to escape. Alina's heart raced with purpose. This was not just a battle for survival. It was a mission to change the narrative surrounding humanity. But just as hope began to swell, an ominous message crackled through the comm system. "Captain, we're detecting another fleet on approach," Jax announced, his brow furrowing. "They're not Zoreth. It looks like a combined force from the Island and Kalar." Alina's stomach dropped. This was the last thing they needed. The Council had been clear about their stance on human involvement in conflicts. What are they doing here? They're not allies, she muttered under her breath, feeling the weight of the situation pressing down. "Maybe they've come to help," Jax suggested, but his tone was laced with doubt. "Or to oversee our failure," Alina replied, steeling herself. "Prepare to engage them if necessary, but let's not escalate the situation. We need to focus on the civilians." As the Orion continued to fend off the Zoreth attacks, the new fleet arrived, and Alina couldn't shake the feeling of being cornered. Just then, a transmission from the Silent flagship crackled through. "UNC Orion, stand down. We are here to intervene. Your reckless actions could ignite a war." "Intervene?" Alina shot back, frustration boiling over. "We're saving lives. If you want to stop this conflict, help us evacuate." The Thailand commander's voice was calm but firm. "You humans think you can solve everything with aggression. Stand down, or we will engage." Alina's resolve hardened. "You don't understand. We're not the enemy here. We can broker peace if you give us the chance." In that moment, she realized they had to make their presence known, not just as soldiers, but as diplomats. "Jax, send a message to the Zoreth fleet. We propose a ceasefire to evacuate the civilians. Let's offer them a chance to negotiate." With a nod, Jax transmitted the message, and they waited, tension hanging thick in the air. To her surprise, the Zoreth commander responded, "We have no quarrel with the civilians. If you cease your fire, we will allow them to leave." Alina seized the moment. "We'll initiate a temporary truce. But know this, we are here to protect the innocent, and we will not tolerate further aggression." As the agreement took shape, Alina felt a glimmer of hope. Perhaps they could change the tide of the narrative, not just for themselves, but for all humanity. The Orion's crew worked feverishly to facilitate the evacuation, while Alina's mind raced with the implications of their actions. As the last pods were launched, she caught sight of the silent ships hovering ominously nearby. This would be their ultimate test. If they could navigate this precarious situation and broker peace, they might finally earn the respect of the Galactic Council. But deep down, she sensed that this was only the beginning. The complexities of interstellar diplomacy were just starting to unfold, and she was determined to lead humanity into a new era, one where fear of war could be replaced with hope for a shared future. As the last civilian pod rocketed into the safety of the Orion, a sense of relief washed over Captain Alina Torres. The truce had held, and the Zoreth had allowed the evacuation to proceed without further violence. Yet the uneasy tension between the human ship and the new arrivals from the Island and Kalar fleets lingered like a shadow. "Status report, Jax," Alina ordered as she turned to her first officer, who was tracking the movements of both the Zoreth and their allies. "We've successfully evacuated all civilians," Jax replied, his eyes flickering over the displays. "But the Zoreth fleet is regrouping. It looks like they're planning a counterattack, possibly emboldened by the arrival of the Thailand and Kalar." "Then we need to prepare," Alina said, her voice steady but firm. "Establish defensive protocols. We can't let them see us as weak." She paused, glancing at the view screen displaying the flickering lights of distant ships. "But we also need to understand what's happening here. Why are the Island and Kalar intervening?" Just then, a transmission crackled over the comms. "UNC Orion, this is Commander Silva of the Thailand fleet. We wish to discuss terms. Your reckless behavior has put us all at risk." Alina exchanged glances with Jax, who raised an eyebrow. terms, he murmured, skepticism evident in his tone. Put it on the screen, Elena commanded, squaring her shoulders. She knew they had to maintain their composure, even under scrutiny. Commander Selva appeared on the view screen, a tall figure with sleek, silver skin that shimmered as she spoke. Your actions have drawn unwanted attention. The Zoreth are not our allies, but neither are they your enemies. If we allow this conflict to escalate, it will lead to war that none of us can afford. We just saved innocent lives, Elena countered, her frustration bubbling. We were acting in their defense. If you want peace, we need to work together. Selva regarded her coolly. You misunderstand. The Council may look favorably upon your actions today, but you remain viewed with suspicion. Your history of conflict looms large. We cannot afford to have a destabilizing factor among us. Elena's mind raced. So, what do you propose? Do we just stand down and let the Zoreth take back what they want? Perhaps, Selva replied, her tone suggesting a calculated consideration. Or you could help us forge a different path. We need proof of your capability for cooperation. Assist us in bringing the Zoreth to the negotiation table. Negotiation. After everything that's happened, Elena's disbelief was evident. Indeed, Selva said, her gaze piercing. We will arrange a meeting. You will mediate. But make no mistake, failure is not an option. Before Elena could respond, alarms blared throughout the ship. Captain, incoming Zoreth ships, Jax shouted, his fingers dancing over the controls. They're ignoring our ceasefire. Divert power to shields. Engage defensive maneuvers. Elena barked. The bridge erupted into a whirlwind of activity as crew members scrambled to respond to the threat. The view screen showed Zoreth vessels breaking formation, their sleek bodies cutting through the darkness with deadly intent. They weren't just aiming for the Orion. They were targeting the Thailan and Kilar ships. Can we raise the Zoreth? Elena asked urgently. They're not responding to our hails. Jax replied, grim determination on his face. As the first shots rang out, Elena felt a surge of adrenaline. We can't let them tear this fragile alliance apart. Focus fire on the lead Zoreth ship. On it, Jax's voice was resolute, and the crew rallied behind him, working in sync like a well-oiled machine. The Orion fired back, its energy weapons illuminating the void. Keep the Thailan and Kilar ships informed of our movements, Elena ordered. If they see us working together, we might stand a chance to save this negotiation and our standing with the Council. As the battle raged, Elena felt the weight of her choices bearing down on her. They weren't just fighting for survival anymore. They were fighting for humanity's place among the stars, and with every shot fired, the stakes grew higher. Would they emerge from this conflict as heroes, or would they become the very monsters the Council feared? The battle erupted in chaos around the UNSC Orion. Zoreth ships swarmed, firing indiscriminately at the Thailan and Kilar fleets, which had initially seemed like potential allies but now appeared as targets in a ruthless clash. Captain Elena Torres gripped the armrests of her command chair, every muscle in her body taut with tension. Captain, the Zoreth are ignoring our commands for a ceasefire. Jax shouted over the din of alarms and shuddering metal. They're closing in on the Thailan flagship. Divert all power to shields and weapons, Elena ordered, determination coursing through her veins. We need to protect our allies, or this conflict will spiral out of control, and we can't let them pin the blame on us. As the Orion took position, Jax's fingers flew over the controls, coordinating defensive maneuvers. We've got incoming fire from multiple vectors. I'm routing power from auxiliary systems to reinforce the shields. Good, and let's make sure our weapons are primed. We'll need to counterattack if it comes to that, she said, scanning the chaotic battlefield for any sign of hope. With each burst of energy from the Zoreth ships, the air crackled with urgency. Explosions illuminated the darkness of space, painting a stark picture of destruction and desperation. Elena knew that if they didn't act swiftly, The fragile alliance with the Tylan and Klar could collapse, and humanity would be blamed for igniting an all-out war. "Captain, that Tylan flagship is signaling for help," Jax exclaimed. "They're taking heavy damage." "Redirect our fire toward the lead Zoreth ship," Elena commanded. "We need to draw their attention away from our allies." As the Orion unleashed its firepower, the bridge vibrated with the intensity of their onslaught. Bright beams of energy sliced through the void, striking the lead Zoreth ship. Elena felt a surge of adrenaline as the enemy vessel wavered under the assault. "Direct hit. They're losing maneuverability," Jax called out, excitement coloring his voice. "Keep pressing the attack," Elena urged, her eyes fixed on the screen. "But let's be strategic. We're not just trying to destroy them. We need to create a diversion to allow that island to regroup." The Zoreth fleet began to scatter under the combined fire from the Orion and the Tylan. Elena felt a spark of hope. Perhaps they could turn the tide of this battle after all. But just as they seemed to gain the upper hand, an emergency alert blared across the bridge. "Captain, a large Zoreth cruiser is breaking through the lines," Jax warned, eyes wide. "It's targeting the Tylan flagship. Divert all firepower to that cruiser. We can't let it reach them," Elena shouted, her heart racing. The crews sprang into action, coordinating their efforts to concentrate fire on the approaching cruiser. As energy beams streaked through the void, Elena felt the tension in the air, a palpable mix of hope and fear. This was a moment that would define them. "Commander Selva is hailing us," Jax said, urgency infusing his tone. "Put her through," Elena replied, bracing herself for the conversation. Selva's image flickered to life on the screen, her expression tense but focused. "Captain Torres, we appreciate your efforts, but we need to consolidate our forces. If we're to stand a chance against the Zoreth, we must work together." Elena nodded, understanding the weight of her next words. "We'll coordinate our fire, but we need to make it clear that we stand united. If we show weakness now, we could lose everything." "Agreed," Selva replied, her eyes glinting with determination. "I'll instruct my ships to form a defensive perimeter, but we must be prepared to negotiate once the battle subsides." "Right," Elena said, knowing that diplomacy would be their ultimate weapon. "Let's hold our ground and protect each other. We can't let the Zoreth split us apart." As the Orion and the Island ships synchronized their attacks, the tide began to shift. The Zoreth cruiser staggered under the coordinated assault, its shields faltering. But in the back of her mind, Elena knew that this wasn't just about the immediate battle. It was a test of trust, a crucible that could either forge an alliance or shatter it completely. In the midst of the chaos, a cold realization crept in. The Council's doubts loomed larger than the fight before them. If they failed to emerge victorious and unified, humanity's place in the galaxy would be forever jeopardized. And the tension of that realization weighed heavily on her heart as the battle raged on, each moment a reminder of what was at stake. The Zoreth cruiser reeled from the combined fire of the UNSC Orion and the Tylan flagship, but it wasn't finished yet. Explosions rocked the ship as its weapons retaliated, striking the Orion's shields with brutal force. Captain Elena Torres braced herself against the command chair, her crew working feverishly to maintain their defensive positions. "Shields holding at 70%, Jax shouted, his voice steady despite the chaos. "But we're running out of time. The Zoreth are regrouping. Redirect all available power to the front shields. We need to withstand their next onslaught," Elena ordered, adrenaline coursing through her veins. "And get me a visual on that cruiser." The view screen switched, revealing the imposing Zoreth vessel, now spewing flames and smoke but still deadly. Its guns glinted ominously, poised for another strike. But beneath the fury of the battle, Elena sensed an opportunity. "Jax, can we bypass their shields? I want to target their reactor core," she proposed, her mind racing through tactical possibilities. "Possibly," he replied, already running calculations. "But we'll need to be precise. A hit could trigger a chain reaction. But if we miscalculate, then we won't miscalculate, Alina interrupted, her eyes narrowing. This is our chance to not only protect that X-Island, but to send a message to the Council that we can stand our ground. Let's do this. As Jax set to work, Alina communicated with Commander Selva through the comm system. We're going to target the reactor core of the Zorith cruiser. I need your ships to hold off any reinforcements while we make the shot. Understood, Selva replied, her voice a mix of tension and resolve. We'll keep the pressure on. Alina took a deep breath, her mind focused. All right, crew, this is it. We're going to hit them where it hurts. I want every weapon online and ready to fire on my mark. The crew exchanged glances, determination etched on their faces. They understood the stakes. They weren't just fighting for their lives. They were fighting for humanity's future in the galaxy. Ready in 5, 4, 3. Jax counted down, fingers poised over the controls. 2, 1. Fire. The Orion erupted with energy as its weapons unleashed a torrent of fire toward the Zorith cruiser. The beams struck true, slamming into the hull with precision. Alina held her breath, heart racing, as the ship staggered. Then came the explosion, a brilliant flash of light that consumed the view screen as the cruiser's reactor core detonated. Shockwaves rippled through space, and debris scattered in every direction. The Zorith fleet, caught off guard, faltered, and chaos erupted among their ranks. Direct hit, Jax yelled, his voice a mix of disbelief and triumph. They're in disarray. Now's our chance. Alina seized the moment. Let's push forward and take advantage of the chaos. Target the remaining Zorith ships. As the crew rallied to engage, the tide of battle shifted dramatically. The Zorith vessels began to retreat, their ranks crumbling under the pressure of the united forces. The X-Island and Kalur ships rallied behind the Orion, creating a formidable front that pushed the remaining enemies back. Zorith ships are falling back. They're breaking formation, Jax announced, exhilaration evident in his tone. Alina felt a surge of hope as the tide turned, but she remained vigilant. We need to solidify our victory. Let's send a message to the remaining Zorith forces. They must understand that aggression will not be tolerated. With a collective breath, the crew prepared a message to the Zorith, outlining the terms for a ceasefire and urging them to reconsider their aggressive stance. Alina knew that this was a crucial moment, not just for the battle, but for their relationship with the Council. Commander Selva, are you with us? Alina asked, turning her focus back to the X-Island flagship. Absolutely. We stand with you, Selva responded, her tone resolute. Let's make this victory count. As the Orion and the X-Island flagship united their efforts, the remaining Zorith ships hesitated, clearly shaken by the sudden change in the battlefield dynamics. The prospect of a truce loomed larger than ever. In that moment, as the remnants of the Zorith fleet withdrew, Alina realized they had done more than just win a battle. They had forged an alliance. The path to peace and cooperation lay before them, and she felt a flicker of hope. This would be the turning point, not just for humanity, but for the entire galaxy. The ultimate test was still to come, but they were ready to face it together. With the Zorith fleet retreating, Captain Alina Torres felt a wave of relief wash over the Orion. The bridge buzzed with excitement as her crew processed their victory. Yet beneath the surface, Alina knew that this was merely the beginning. They had secured a momentary reprieve, but the true challenge lay ahead. Negotiating peace. Prepare to send a message to the Zorith forces, Alina instructed, her voice steady. We need to offer them terms for a ceasefire and an opportunity to discuss a lasting resolution. Jax nodded, his fingers flying over the console. I'll draft a message. We should emphasize that we're willing to listen, but their aggression cannot go unanswered. As the crew worked, Commander Selva appeared on the view screen, her expression serious. Captain Torres, I suggest we arrange a neutral ground for these negotiations. The Council needs to see that we can cooperate, or else they may dismiss our actions as mere luck." "Agreed," Alina replied. "We can suggest a meeting on the planet Arathis. It's remote and holds no strategic advantage for any side. It should provide a conducive environment for discussion." "Good choice," Selva affirmed. "We'll need to send a delegation as soon as possible. I recommend we include representatives from all three factions, humans, Cylon, and Kalar." Alina nodded, feeling the weight of responsibility settle on her shoulders. "Let's assemble our delegation and prepare a formal proposal. We need to present a united front if we want to succeed." As they organized the meeting, Alina reflected on what was at stake. This was an opportunity to reshape the narrative surrounding humanity, to show that they could be not only warriors but also diplomats. The thought fueled her determination. Hours later, the Orion entered orbit around Arathis, its surface a lush tapestry of greens and blues. As the crew prepared for the meeting, Alina gathered her delegation, a mix of seasoned officers and strategic advisors. Each member understood the stakes. Failure could mean war. "Remember, we're not just here to negotiate with the Zorith," Alina addressed her team. "We're also setting a precedent for how humanity is perceived in the galaxy. Let's show them our capacity for peace and collaboration." As they descended to the surface, Alina felt a blend of hope and anxiety. They were entering uncharted territory, not only for their mission but for their species as a whole. Upon landing, Alina and her team were greeted by a contingent of Cylon and Kalar representatives. Commander Selva was there, flanked by a tall, imposing Kalar diplomat whose scales gleamed in the sunlight. "Welcome, Captain Torres," Selva said. "The Zorith delegation will arrive shortly." "Let's remain focused," Alina replied, her resolve firm. "We need to establish common ground from the outset. We can't let emotions from the battle cloud our judgment." As they waited, tension hung in the air, a palpable reminder of the conflict that had just unfolded. When the Zorith delegation arrived, Alina took a deep breath. Their leader, a sharp-featured Zorith named Commander Varric, stepped forward, flanked by his officers. "Human," Varric's voice was deep and measured. "You have shown strength today. But strength does not equate to trust. Why should we listen to your terms?" Alina stepped forward, meeting his gaze. "Because we all want to avoid further bloodshed. The lives lost in this conflict serve no one. We propose a ceasefire and a series of discussions aimed at addressing the grievances that led to today's aggression." Varric regarded her with skepticism, his eyes narrowing. "And what guarantee do we have that you will honor this agreement? Your kind has a history of betrayal." "We understand your distrust," Alina replied, her voice steady. "But this is our opportunity to change the narrative. If we can prove that we can cooperate, it will benefit all parties involved." Selva added, "We are here to facilitate, not to impose. Together, we can create a lasting peace that ensures mutual respect and cooperation among our species." The air crackled with tension as the Zorith delegation conferred among themselves. Alina watched closely, hoping to see signs of willingness to engage. After what felt like an eternity, Varric turned back to her. "We will consider your proposal, but know this, if we sense any treachery, there will be consequences." Alina nodded, feeling a flicker of hope. "That's all we ask for. An opportunity to prove ourselves. Let's work together to find a path forward." As discussions commenced, Alina felt the weight of the moment. This was not just about securing peace. It was about forging a new future for humanity among the stars. The ultimate test of their resolve and unity was just beginning, and she was determined to rise to the occasion. The negotiations began with tension thick in the air. Captain Alina Torres sat at the table surrounded by representatives from the Cylon, Kalar, and Zorith fleets, each faction wary yet intrigued by the possibility of peace. She took a deep breath, reminding herself of the stakes involved, not just for humanity, but for the entire galaxy. "Let's start with the core issues," Alina proposed, her voice steady. "We need to address the factors that led to this conflict. The Zoreth must feel secure in their standing, just as the Axylon and Klar do. Commander Varric leaned forward, his sharp features betraying little of his thoughts. Our people have felt cornered for far too long. The Council's decision to overlook our needs in favor of others has only exacerbated tensions. Elena nodded, understanding the weight of his words. Then let's establish a framework for mutual respect and dialogue. We need a council that includes representatives from all factions, one that ensures every voice is heard. Selva interjected, and we can include measures to ensure that resources and territories are equitably distributed. This will require transparency and trust among us. The Zoreth delegation murmured among themselves, and Elena sensed a flicker of hope. It was a start, but she knew the path ahead was fraught with challenges. As we discussed these terms, Varric said, his voice low and firm, let us not forget the consequences of failure. Should trust be broken, the repercussions will be dire. Elena felt the weight of his words. We are fully aware of that. This isn't just about avoiding war. It's about building a future. I propose we establish a peacekeeping force, a coalition made up of representatives from each faction to monitor adherence to our agreements. An interesting idea, Varric replied, skepticism creeping back into his tone. But how can we be sure that your forces won't act against our interests? We will work out the specifics together, Elena assured him. This coalition would operate under a strict code of conduct, with equal representation in decision-making. The goal is to protect all parties involved, not just one. The conversation continued, weaving through complex issues of governance, resource allocation, and mutual defense. The room buzzed with a mix of hope and skepticism, but slowly they began to find common ground. After several hours, as the sun dipped below the horizon of Arathis, a tentative agreement began to take shape. Elena felt a rush of exhilaration. They were on the brink of something monumental. Let us sign this preliminary agreement, Selva proposed, her eyes alight with determination. This will demonstrate our commitment to peace. With a nod of agreement from Varric, the atmosphere shifted. Elena felt the energy in the room change as the Zoreth commander stood, extending his hand to her. Let this be the first step toward rebuilding trust. Elena stood as well, shaking his hand firmly. Together, we can forge a new path. This is just the beginning. As the representatives signed the agreement, Elena felt a wave of relief wash over her. They had navigated the tumultuous waters of distrust and emerged with the seeds of a new alliance. The ultimate test of their resolve had not only been met but exceeded. Once the formalities concluded, Elena and her team stepped outside, breathing in the fresh air of Arathis. The vibrant colors of dusk painted the sky, a stark contrast to the darkness they had fought against. Captain, we did it, Jack said, a grin breaking across his face. We really did it. Yes, we did, Elena replied, feeling the weight of their victory settle in. But this is only the beginning. We have a long way to go, and we must remain vigilant. As the sun set on Arathis, the first stars began to twinkle in the vastness of space, a reminder that while conflicts might ignite, cooperation could illuminate paths to peace. The galaxy was vast, and the challenges ahead would be many, but for the first time, Elena felt a sense of unity and hope. Humanity had taken its place among the stars, not as conquerors, but as partners in a shared journey. And as she looked up at the burgeoning cosmos, she knew they were ready to face whatever came next, together.